Welcome to Passions Illustrated. Before starting the video, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. The sound of joyful laughter echoed through the elegant living room decorated with pastel colors and delicate cloud-shaped balloons when Sophia Henderson's world fell apart in a matter of seconds. She was serving mimosas to guests at her best friend Madison's baby shower at her home in Providence, Rhode Island, when she overheard the conversation that would change her life forever. So Patricia bought that lovely house in Burlington for Charlotte, and the girls commented an unfamiliar voice from the hallway. She really knows how to keep the two families apart, doesn't she? Sophia froze and placed the bottle of champagne, still tilted over the overflowing glass. Patricia, his wife of 7 years, was supposedly at a medical conference in Boston. Patricia, the dedicated pediatric surgeon with whom he planned to start a family. Patricia, who apparently had another family in Vermont. Sophia, Rebecca, her childhood friend, touched her shoulder gently. "Are you okay? You're pale as a ghost." With trembling hands, Sophia placed the bottle on the coffee table and mumbled an apology before retreating to her office on the second floor. Rebecca followed her, closing the door quietly behind them. "What happened?" Rebecca asked, taking a seat next to Sophia on the small leather sofa. "I just heard. Patricia has another family." Sophia whispered, the words burning in her throat. "In Burlington. A woman called Charlotte and daughters." Rebecca swallowed, her brown eyes wide at the revelation. As a private investigator, she had seen many cases of infidelity, but she had never expected her best friend to become one of her clients. "Who was talking about this?" Rebecca asked, her professional manner already showing. "I didn't recognize the voice," Sophia replied, running her hands through her red hair. "But she spoke as if it was something common, Rebecca. As if everyone knew but me." The rest of the afternoon passed like a blur. Sophia managed to keep up appearances during the baby shower, smiling mechanically and making appropriate comments about the presents Madison received. But inside her mind was buzzing with 1,000 questions. When the last guest left, Rebecca stayed on to help with the cleaning, but mainly to stop Sophia from doing anything impulsive. "We need to be strategic about this," Rebecca said, putting away the crystal goblets. "If Patricia has kept this a secret for so long, there must be a considerable trail of evidence." Sophia nodded, her hands automatically busy folding and used paper napkins. "All those extra shifts, the frequent conferences. How could I have been so blind?" "Don't blame yourself," Rebecca interrupted her firmly. "People who lead double lives are masters of manipulation. They know exactly what to say and how to act to maintain their lies." That evening, after Rebecca had left, Sophia sat in the office she shared with Patricia, looking at the wedding photos on the wall. They looked so happy, so in love. The ceremony had been small, just family and close friends at a vineyard in Napa Valley. Patricia had cried during the vows, promising eternal love and fidelity. With trembling hands, Sophia turned on the computer and began to go through the joint bank statements. At first glance, nothing seemed out of the ordinary. Patricia's salary as a surgeon easily explained the large movements. But there were small patterns, regular transfers to an account she had never noticed before, always on the same days of the month. Her phone vibrated with a message from Patricia. "Conference is fine. I miss you, love. See you tomorrow night." Sophia felt bile rising in her throat. How many messages like this had she received over the years? How many were lies? The sound of footsteps downstairs startled her. Madison had forgotten her purse and had come back for it. Seeing the state of her friend, Madison canceled her plans for the evening and stayed. "You need to confront her," Madison said, pouring Sophia a cup of tea. "Not yet," Rebecca intervened over the phone on speakerphone. "First, we need to find out the extent of all this. If Patricia has another family, there must be records, property deeds, school, enrollment, medical bills. Burlington isn't that far away," Madison mused. "We could go there, investigate in person." Sophia looked out the window, watching the lights of a city she had always considered her safe home. Now every happy memory seemed tainted by the possibility that it had been built on lies. "When Patricia comes back tomorrow," Sophia finally said, her voice firmer, "I'll act normally. But I need to know the full truth before I confront her." Rebecca and Madison exchanged worried glances. They knew that tone in Sophia's voice. It was the same one she used when she decided to sue the university for discrimination, the same one that appeared when she fought for her most vulnerable clients at the law firm. "We're with you," Rebecca assured her. "I'll start the investigation first thing in the morning." That night alone in the king-size bed she shared with Patricia, Sophia couldn't sleep. Every moment of their married life flashed through her mind like a slow-motion movie. The frequent business trips, the mysterious phone calls, the sudden mood swings, everything now had a different, darker meaning. On her Christmas, did she send presents to other children? When she celebrated birthdays with Sophia, had she already celebrated with another family? How many lives was Patricia living, and which of them were real? The morning came with no answers, just a growing determination. Sophia Henderson, respected lawyer and devoted wife, was about to become something she had never imagined, an investigator of her own life. The next morning, Sophia stared at her laptop screen with burning eyes after a sleepless night. Rebecca had sent a preliminary report that confirmed her worst suspicions. A quick search revealed that Patricia maintained a separate Instagram account under a pseudonym, filled with photos of two smiling girls, her other daughters. "I found something," Rebecca said over the phone. Charlotte Miller, 39, music teacher in Burlington. She has two daughters, Grace, 6, and Lily, 4. The deed to the house is in the name of a shell company, but I managed to trace it back to Patricia. Sophia felt her stomach turn. The girls' ages coincided perfectly with the periods when Patricia was supposedly residing in other states. How did she manage to hide it for so long? Money and meticulous planning, Rebecca replied. Patricia created an elaborate network of accounts and companies to channel funds through. She's impressively organized. Madison entered the office carrying strong coffee and donuts, which Sophia barely touched. "We need a plan," Madison said, taking a seat next to her friend. "Patricia's coming back tonight. How are you going to act?" "As usual," Sophia replied, forcing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "I'll kiss her, ask about the conference, and pretend I don't know she spent the weekend with her other family." Rebecca sighed on the other end of the line. "I got access to the flight records. Patricia never went to Boston. She took a direct flight to Burlington on Friday." The abandoned breakfast went cold as the three women planned their next steps. Rebecca suggested a discreet trip to Burlington to gather more evidence, while Madison offered to stay with Sophia, fearful of leaving her alone with her thoughts. "There's one more thing," Rebecca hesitated. "I found records of a substantial savings account in the girls' names. Patricia has been depositing regularly since before your marriage, Sophia." The revelation hit Sophia like a punch in the gut. It meant that Patricia already had her secret family when they met, when they exchanged vows, when they planned their own future together. In the afternoon, Sophia immersed herself in her work at the law firm, seeking distraction from the employment discrimination cases that usually absorbed her completely. But every document she read seemed blurred, every thought inevitably returning to Patricia. Mrs. Henderson, her assistant Kelly, appeared at the door. "Your wife called. She said she's going to be a bit late, but she's bringing dinner." Sophia nodded mechanically, wondering how many times Patricia had made that same call to Charlotte over the years. Did she use the same sweet words, the same affectionate tone of voice in the evening sitting in her car in the office parking lot? Sophia accessed Charlotte Miller's social networks. The profile was private, but her profile picture showed a smiling blonde woman hugging two little girls who were the image of Patricia, the same green eyes, the same crooked smile. "I'm going home now," Patricia texted. "I brought you that pasta you love from Luigi's." Sophia took a deep breath, remembering the acting classes she'd taken at college. Now they would serve a purpose she had never imagined. At home, Patricia welcomed her with a kiss and elaborate stories about medical lectures that never happened. Sophia smiled, nodded, and asked the expected questions while her heart broke a little more with each lie. "I was thinking," Sophia said casually over dinner, "we could take a trip next month. Maybe Vermont. Burlington sounds lovely this time of year." Patricia choked slightly on her wine, but recovered quickly. "Vermont, why not? Cape Cod, you've always wanted to visit Martha's Vineyard." "Just an idea," Sophia shrugged, watching intently as Patricia's hands clenched her napkin. "I thought it would be an interesting change." Later, lying next to Patricia, Sophia texted Rebecca, "Tomorrow we're going to Burlington. I need to see for myself." The reply came quickly, "I've already booked a car. Madison will cover for you at the office. We leave at 7. Sophia looked at her wife, sleeping peacefully, wondering how anyone could live with such a burden of lies. She wondered if Patricia dreamed of her two families, if she sometimes confused the stories she told each of them. A silent notification lit up her phone. Rebecca had found the Instagram profile of Grace, Patricia's eldest daughter. public full of photos of a girl who could easily be her own daughter in an alternative reality. The latest post showed Grace holding a piano recital trophy with the caption, "Mommy said I'm as talented as she is." Sophia hung up the phone feeling silent tears run down her face. Tomorrow, she would see for herself the life that Patricia had built alongside theirs. Tomorrow, the lies would begin to crumble. But for now, she would continue her own act, protecting her broken heart with every fake smile and whispered goodnight love. The 3-hour drive to Burlington passed in tense silence, broken only by the occasional sound of notifications on Rebecca's phone, which continued its investigation even during the journey. Sophia watched the Vermont landscape through the rental car window, her thoughts oscillating between memories of the past and the harsh reality she was about to confront. "I found the address of the school where Charlotte works," Rebecca said, breaking the silence. "Lighthouse Academy. It's a private music school. She teaches piano there." Piano. Sophia murmured. "Patricia always said she wanted to learn the piano when we were newlyweds. Now I know why she never started lessons." When they arrived in Burlington, the town on the shores of Lake Champlain displayed an autumnal beauty that seemed to mock the two friends' gloomy mission. Rebecca parked the car a safe distance from the Lighthouse Academy, an elegantly restored Victorian building. "It's 10:45, Rebecca checked her watch. "According to the timetable I got, Charlotte has a presentation with her students at 1100. Sophia adjusted her sunglasses and followed Rebecca into the building. They mingled easily with the other parents arriving to watch the performance. The auditorium was decorated with colorful ribbons and handmade posters announcing the spring recital. It was then that Sophia saw her. Charlotte Miller looked exactly as she did in the photos, but even more radiant in person. She led a group of children at the piano with a natural grace, her gentle smile calming the little musicians' nerves. Among them was Grace, the perfect copy of Patricia at the age of 6 as Sophia had seen in old photos. "That woman over there," a mother commented next to them, "is Mrs. Miller. A real angel. I don't know how she manages to raise 2 daughters on her own and still be such a dedicated teacher." Sophia felt her stomach turn. Alone, Patricia's lies had created victims on both sides. The recital went by like a blur of classical music and applause. Sophia barely registered the performances, her eyes fixed on Grace, who played Fur Elise with the same concentration that Patricia showed during complex surgeries. After the performance, Rebecca and Sophia discreetly followed Charlotte and the girls to a nearby cafe. Through the window, they observed the family in their casual moment of celebration. Lily, the youngest, was devouring a cupcake while Grace proudly showed off her certificate of participation. "How can she do that?" Sophia whispered, her hands trembling around the untouched coffee cup. "How can she build 2 such complete lies and keep both families in the dark?" "I found something else," Rebecca said softly, showing her tablet. Charlotte and Patricia met at the Music College of Berkeley. Patricia was in her first year of medical school, but took piano lessons as an elective. The revelation struck Sophia like a thunderbolt. Patricia had only mentioned Berkeley once, saying that that period of her life was too complicated to discuss. Following an impulse, Sophia entered the cafe, ignoring Rebecca's whispered protests. She sat down at a nearby table, allowing herself to listen to her family's conversation. "Mom promised to come to my recital next week," Grace was saying excitedly. "She never breaks her promises." Charlotte smiled, but there was a shadow of sadness in her eyes. "Yes, dear. Mom always does her best to be there for the important moments." Sophia felt bile rising in her throat. Next week, Patricia had said she would be at a conference in Seattle. One more lie for the growing collection. Back in the car, Rebecca drove to the address of the house Patricia had bought for Charlotte. It was a charming colonial residence with a well-kept garden and swings in the backyard. Children's bicycles were leaning against the porch, and through the windows they could see colorful drawings decorating the walls. "We need more," Sophia said firmly. "Bank records, legal documents, anything that proves how long this has been going on." Rebecca nodded, already typing on her tablet. "I have a contact at the land registry. I can get the complete documentation for the house by tomorrow." On the way back to Providence, Sophia received a message from Patricia. "Busy day at the hospital. I'll be late. Don't expect me for dinner. Love you." With a bitter smile, Sophia checked the tracking app she had secretly installed on Patricia's cell phone the night before. The dot flashed: Burlington, not Providence. She's going to Grace's recital next week, Sophia told Rebecca. And we'll be there too. Sophia, Rebecca hesitated. Are you sure seeing Patricia with them? I need to see for myself, Sophia interrupted. I need to see how she acts when she's with her other family. I need to understand. The rest of the trip was filled with meticulous planning. Rebecca would activate her contacts to gather as much documentation as possible, while Sophia would maintain her facade as an unsuspecting wife for another week. That night, when Patricia finally arrived home, Sophia was already in bed pretending to sleep. She felt the mattress sink with the familiar weight of her wife and the faint scent of children's perfume that she couldn't quite disguise. "Good night, love," Patricia whispered in the dark. Sophia kept her breathing steady, thinking of the two girls in Burlington who had probably received the same good-night kiss a few hours earlier. In a week, Patricia's lies would finally catch up with her, and nothing would ever be the same again. The week leading up to Grace's recital passed like an elaborate torture for Sophia. Every dinner with Patricia, every kiss goodnight, every affectionate message now carried the weight of the lies that had been uncovered. Rebecca continued her meticulous investigation, uncovering deeper and deeper layers of deception. The bank records came through, Rebecca reported, over a discreet lunch at a secluded cafe in Providence's legal district. Patricia started transferring money to an account in Charlotte's name 3 months before she met you. Sophia stirred her coffee absently, watching the dark liquid swirl. So our entire relationship was built on lies. There's more. Rebecca hesitated, sliding a folder across the table. I found records of a vacation home in Lake Placid. Apparently Patricia takes Charlotte and the girls there every summer. Sophia's stomach churned as she recognized the dates. It was always when Patricia claimed to be at medical conferences on the West Coast. 3 weeks, every July, perfect clockwork. Madison joined them, bringing more disturbing information. I talked to some nurses at the hospital. Apparently Patricia has a history of emergencies that coincide perfectly with important events in the girls' lives. Like the first days of school, Sophia added, remembering the many occasions when Patricia had rushed out because of emergency surgeries. The day before the recital, Sophia watched Patricia pack for her supposed trip to Seattle. Every meticulous movement, every elaborate explanation now looked like a well-rehearsed performance. "I'm gonna miss you," Patricia said, kissing her softly. "It's only 3 days." "I'll miss you too," Sophia replied, the words leaving a bitter taste in her mouth. The next day, Sophia and Rebecca made the now familiar journey to Burlington. This time Madison accompanied them, worried about her friend's emotional state. The auditorium at Lighthouse Academy was even fuller than the week before. "She's here," Rebecca whispered discreetly, pointing to a familiar figure entering through the side door. Sophia felt her heart stop for a moment. Patricia looked stunning in a navy blue dress Sophia had never seen before, carrying a bouquet of flowers. She moved familiarly through the space, greeting other parents, as if she had been part of that community for years, which Sophia now knew was true. Grace ran into Patricia's arms as soon as she saw her, and Lily wasn't far behind. The tight embrace and affectionate kisses that Patricia showered on her daughters made Sophia feel nauseous. Charlotte watched the scene with a serene smile, completely oblivious to the fact that her life was also built on lies. During the performance, Sophia watched with painful fascination as Patricia reacted to every note Grace played. The pride on her face, the restrained tears, the way her hands moved subtly to the melody, these were expressions of genuine love that Sophia knew well, but now realized she shared with others. "Are you okay?" Madison asked, holding her hand. "No, Sophia answered honestly, but I need to see this through to the end." After the recital, the family gathered for photos. Patricia held Grace in her arms while Lily wrapped her arms around her waist. Charlotte completed the perfect picture, taking photos and laughing at something Patricia had whispered. Rebecca discreetly documented everything with her professional camera, each image further proof of the elaborate lie Patricia had constructed. "We're going to Giovanni's for dinner to celebrate," Grace announced excitedly, her voice carrying through the auditorium. "Mom promised you could stay all night tonight." Sophia felt the air leave her lungs. Giovanni's was where she and Patricia had celebrated their first wedding anniversary. "I think we've seen enough," Madison suggested, gently, noticing how Sophia's hands were shaking. But Sophia remained motionless, watching the family leave the auditorium. Patricia carried Lily on her shoulders while her free hand rested on Charlotte's back with an intimacy that spoke of years of living together. No, Sophia finally set her voice firm despite the unshed tears. Let's go to Giovanni's. I want to see how tonight ends. During dinner hidden away at a distant table in the restaurant, the three friends watched Patricia living her other life. She cut Lily's meat as patiently as she prepared breakfast for Sophia on Sundays. She laughed at Grace's jokes with the same enthusiasm she showed on game nights in Providence. How can anyone keep two lives apart for so long? Madison muttered in disbelief. Practice, Rebecca replied bitterly. Lots of practice and a special talent for lying. Sophia barely touched her food, her eyes fixed on the familiar scene that was unfolding. Patricia's every gesture now seemed rehearsed, every smile a perfectly fitted mask. When the family finally left the restaurant, Sophia remained seated holding a glass of wine by the stem so tightly that her fingers were white. What do you want to do now? Rebecca asked softly. Tomorrow, Sophia replied, her voice carrying a determination that surprised even herself. When Patricia supposedly comes back from Seattle, I'm going to confront her with everything. The drive back to Providence was silent, each woman lost in her own thoughts. Sophia mentally reviewed all the evidence they had collected, preparing for the confrontation that would change her life forever. The morning after the recital, Sophia sat in her home office, methodically organizing the evidence she had collected about Patricia's double life. Photos, bank statements, property deeds, and dozens of other pieces of evidence formed a grotesque collage of betrayal on her mahogany desk. Are you sure you want to do this alone? Rebecca asked through the speakerphone, her voice heavy with concern. Madison and I can be there in 20 minutes. No, Sophia replied, her voice firm despite the trembling in her hands. I need to face this alone. You've already done more than enough. The GPS showed that Patricia's car was approaching Providence. She kept up the charade until the end, having left Burlington in the early hours of the morning to sustain the lie of the trip to Seattle. At 10:47, Sophia heard the key turning in the lock. Patricia walked in carrying her suitcase, the same rehearsed smile on her lips. Honey, I'm home. Her voice echoed through the house. Seattle was a mess, but I managed to catch an early flight. Sophia remained silent, watching through the ajar office door as Patricia climbed the stairs. Each step seemed to echo with the weight of 7 years of lies. Sophia, Patricia called out again, her voice closer now. Are you home? At the office, Sophia replied, her voice surprisingly calm. Patricia entered, still smiling, but her smile froze at the sight of the documents spread out on the desk. Her green eyes, always so adept at masking the truth, now revealed a flash of panic. Grace's recital was beautiful last night, Sophia said softly, watching her wife's face pale. She plays Beethoven magnificently. She must have inherited his musical talent. Patricia staggered, slightly leaning on the doorframe. Sophia, I can explain. Explain what exactly? Sophia interrupted, her voice as sharp as ice. How did you maintain 2 families for 7 years? How did you manage to look me in the eye every night and lie? Or perhaps you'd like to explain how you planned to have children with me while you were already the mother of 2 girls. It didn't start out that way, Patricia stammered, tears beginning to form in her eyes. Charlotte and it was complicated. When you met me, you already had a family, Sophia added. I already had Grace. Lily was born during our 3rd year of marriage. I remember that conference in Chicago. You were actually in Burlington, weren't you, in hospital, giving birth to your 2nd daughter? Patricia collapsed into the chair in front of the table, her defenses finally crumbling. I love you, Sophia. That was never a lie. But you also love Charlotte, Sophia noted. And your daughters? You've built a whole life parallel to ours. The house in Burlington, the summers in Lake Placid, the recitals, the birthday parties. How did you manage to compartmentalize all that? At first it was just, I couldn't choose, Patricia began, her voice trembling. Charlotte was my first love in college. When she got pregnant with Grace, I panicked. I was starting my residency, my family had expectations. Then I met you, and it was like the universe was offering me a second chance. A second chance, Sophia laughed bitterly. You've turned our lives into an elaborate lie. Every moment we shared is tainted now. Every happy memory has a shadow of doubt. Patricia reached for Sophia's hand on the table, but she pulled back. Please, can we try? Try what? Sophia interrupted. Fix it. How are you just going to abandon Charlotte and the girls, or are you proposing that I agree to be part of your time-sharing scheme? I don't know. Patricia exploded, tears flowing freely now. I don't know how to fix it, but I do know that I can't lose you. You've already lost me, Sophia said, her voice breaking slightly. The moment you decided to build our life on lies, you lost me. It only took me 7 years to find out. The silence that followed was deafening. Patricia looked at the photos spread out on the table, images of her with Charlotte and the girls, stolen moments from her secret life, now exposed to the light. I've already spoken to my lawyer, Sophia continued, her professional voice masking her pain. The divorce papers will be delivered later today. I suggest you find somewhere to stay. Sophia, please. You have until tomorrow to get your things out, Sophia continued, ignoring the plea. After that, I'll change the locks. Any communication must be made through the lawyers. Patricia stood up slowly, looking like she'd aged a decade in minutes. What are you going to do about Charlotte? She deserves to know the truth as much as I did, Sophia replied. But how and when you tell her is up to you. Just know that if you don't, I will. When Patricia finally left the office, Sophia allowed her own tears to fall. Years of shared memories, dreams built together, all destroyed by a web of lies, so elaborate that her own architect had lost herself in it. Her phone vibrated, worried messages from Rebecca and Madison, but Sophia couldn't answer them yet. First, she needed to process the end of her marriage, the end of a life that she now realized had never really been hers. The morning after the confrontation, Sophia watched through the office window as Patricia loaded the last boxes into her car. The scene had a surreal quality, 7 years of married life, reduced to a few dozen cardboard boxes. I've already informed the hospital about my temporary leave, Patricia said from the doorway, her voice hoarse. I'm staying at my sister's in Newport. Sophia didn't answer, her eyes fixed on a photo that Patricia had dropped without realizing it, the two of them on their honeymoon in Bali, beaming smiles and passionate gazes that now seemed to belong to other people. As soon as Patricia left, Rebecca and Madison arrived, bringing coffee and a fierce determination to protect their friend. While they were organizing the divorce papers, Sophia's phone rang, an unknown number from Burlington. Charlotte, Sophia whispered, showing the screen to her friends. You don't have to answer it, Madison said softly. But Sophia had already slid her finger across the screen. Hello, are you Sophia? The voice on the other end was surprisingly calm. Patricia just told me everything. The silence that followed was as thick as fog. Rebecca squeezed Sophia's hand in silent support. Yes, it's me, Sophia finally replied. I'm sorry you were involved in that lie too. 15 years, Charlotte said, her voice trembling slightly. I was with her for 15 years, believing that her absences were because of work. What an idiot I was. The conversation that followed was surprisingly civilized, two women sharing their stories of love and betrayal, with Patricia filling in each other's gaps like pieces of a painful puzzle. The girls, Sophia asked hesitantly. Grace understands more than she should, Charlotte replied with a heavy sigh. Lily is still very small. But they both wonder why mommy's crying so much. After hanging up, Sophia found herself inexplicably exhausted, as if the conversation had drained her last reserves of energy. Madison prepared tea while Rebecca continued organizing documents. Patricia has tried to call me 5 times since she left, Sophia commented, looking at her phone. She's left voicemails begging for a chance to explain. There is no explanation that can justify 7 years of lies, Rebecca said firmly. Or in Charlotte's case, 15 years. The rest of the day passed in a blur of practical activities, changing joint account passwords, canceling shared credit cards, starting the process of legally separating assets. Each action was like removing a layer from the life Sophia had built with Patricia. In the evening, alone in her now strangely empty house, Sophia found an envelope that Patricia had left on her bedside table. Inside, as well as a letter of apology, several pages long, was an old photo, Patricia and Charlotte Young smiling in front of the Berkeley Conservatory. With trembling hands, Sophia typed a message to Charlotte. I found a picture of you at Berkeley. Would you like me to send it to you? The reply came almost immediately. Please. I don't have many photos from that time. It was when we still believed that love was simple. As she scanned the photo, Sophia realized that she was crying not only for her own pain, but also for Charlotte, for the girls, and yes, even for Patricia's, who had constructed such an elaborate prison of lies that she ended up imprisoning herself. The phone rang again. This time it was Madison. "How are you feeling? Like I'm living someone else's life," Sophia answered honestly. "As if the last 7 years were a book I read about someone else." "You'll get over it," Madison assured her. "You're the strongest person I know." The next morning, Sophia returned to work, immersing herself in her cases as a form of distraction. Her colleagues had been informed that she was going through a divorce, but the sordid details remained private. During lunch, she received another message from Charlotte. "Patricia is trying to convince us to try family therapy," as if she could fix years of lies with a few counseling sessions. Sophia felt a bitter laugh escape. "She suggested the same thing to me. Apparently she believes she can maintain both families somehow." "She always wanted to have it all," Charlotte replied. "She never learned that sometimes you have to choose." In the afternoon, sitting in her office going over documents, Sophia received an unexpected email. It was from Grace, sent from her school account. Attached was a video of her playing the piano with the message, "Mom said you were at my recital. I wanted you to know that I'm not mad at you. It wasn't your fault." The tears Sophia had been holding back all day finally overflowed. The wisdom of a 6-year-old had touched something deep in her heart, a truth she herself was struggling to accept. That evening, after all the emails had been answered and all the phone calls returned, Sophia sat in her back garden, watching the stars. Patricia had planted roses there in their first year together, promising that they would bloom year after year like their love. The roses were still there, resilient and beautiful, even if the love that had planted them had turned out to be an illusion. 3 months after her confrontation with Patricia, Sophia found herself organizing a box of memories in her new apartment in Boston's Back Bay. The move from Providence had been an impulsive but necessary decision. Every corner of the city carried memories of her life with Patricia. "This place is perfect for you," Madison commented, unpacking law books. Close to the new office and overlooking the Charles River. Sophia smiled, slightly, watching the sunset through the 10th floor windows. Her transfer to the Boston office of the law firm had been readily accepted. Her reputation as a civil rights defender had preceded her. Charlotte called earlier today, Sophia mentioned, carefully folding a wedding dress she couldn't force herself to throw away. "Patricia is trying to get shared custody of the girls." Rebecca, who was visiting to help with the move, frowned. "How is Charlotte coping?" "Surprisingly well," Sophia replied. "She said that the girls have a right to have Patricia in their lives as long as it's honest this time." The divorce proceedings had turned out to be less contentious than expected. Patricia, perhaps consumed by guilt, agreed to practically all of Sophia's demands. The house in Providence was sold, the assets divided, and the accounts separated without much conflict. "I received an interesting email yesterday." Sophia continued, taking a seat on the new sofa with a glass of wine. "An LGBT+ organization in Burlington invited me to give a talk on relationships and honesty." Madison and Rebecca exchanged surprised glances. "Are you going to accept?" "I haven't decided yet," Sophia admitted. "Part of me wants to turn this whole experience into something positive, something that can help other people. But another part is still trying to make sense of it all." Sophia's phone vibrated, a message from Grace with a photo of her latest piano trophy. Despite everything, she had maintained a surprisingly sweet relationship with the girl, exchanging occasional messages about music and books. "You know what's weird?" Sophia reflected, showing the photo to her friends. "In another life, she could have been my daughter too. Patricia and I were planning to start a family, just when everything exploded." Rebecca sat down next to her, putting a comforting arm around her shoulders. "Maybe that's why you should give that talk. Your story might help other people understand the importance of honesty in relationships." The evening progressed, with the 3 friends organizing Sophia's new space, transforming it from an empty apartment into something that was beginning to feel like a home. Pictures of family and friends were hung up, but the empty spaces where the photos with Patricia used to be remained as silent reminders of the past. "I found this among the papers," Madison said softly, holding up a yellowed envelope. It was a letter Patricia had written to Sophia on their first wedding anniversary, full of promises of eternal love and absolute honesty. "Do you want to keep it?" Sophia picked up the envelope, her fingers tracing the familiar handwriting. "No," she decided after a moment. "Some things need to stay in the past." The next morning, Sophia woke up early for her first day in the new office. As she was getting ready, she received an unexpected message from Charlotte. The girls have an important recital next month. Grace asked if you'd like to come. Sophia felt her heart squeeze. Wouldn't that be strange? Maybe, Charlotte replied. But nothing in this situation is normal. The girls like you, and you're part of this story whether you like it or not. On the way to work, Sophia reflected on how her life had changed over the last few months. The pain was still there, but different, more like a scar than an open wound. In her new office, overlooking the Charles River, Sophia opened her laptop and began writing her response to the LGBT+ organization's invitation. Her words flowed naturally, carrying not only her personal story, but also the lessons she had learned about love, truth, and the courage to start again. Dear organizers, she typed, I accept the invitation to share my story. Not because I have all the answers, but because I have learned that sometimes the right questions are more important than the answers. The Boston sun shone through the windows, casting dancing shadows on her desk. In Providence, her roses were probably blooming in someone else's garden. In Burlington, Grace was practicing the piano for her next recital. In Newport, Patricia was trying to rebuild the relationships that her lies had destroyed. And there in her new beginning, Sophia Henderson finally understood that some stories don't have traditional happy endings. Some stories are about learning to find beauty in the shards, about building something new from the ruins of what was lost. Are you okay? Madison asked during their lunch together. Sophia looked out at the city she now called home, at the people hurrying through the streets below, each carrying their own stories of love and loss. I'm getting there, she answered honestly. One day at a time, and for the first time in months her smile reached her eyes.